Hi, my name is Jordan. I am a special education teacher from the UK. I share my passion for everything communication, sensory regulation, and fun lesson ideas for my classroom of disabled pupils aged 4 to 11. Each week, I am joined by experts in the field, answering your questions and sharing our knowledge and experience working alongside our beautiful young people. Let's get started. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sensory Classroom podcast. My name is Jordan, and today I am joined by Jordan Faria, who we're going to talk about setting up nurture groups today. I am inundated every day. I get messages from teachers and Senkos with wanting advice on how to set up nurture groups or autism groups or, separate hubs, I suppose. You all have different names for them, but it's essentially a safe place where the sensory children can go, the in-betweeners can go, the children that haven't got a specialist setting and don't quite fit into any space. And these wonderful teachers and Senkos are being innovative and creating makeshift classrooms for these beautiful children. And I'm excited to talk to Faria about that today. Hello, Faria.
Hello, Jordan.
Would you like to introduce yourself on what you do, where you are, and how long you've been doing it?
Okay, I am Faria Alam. I'm an inclusion manager and Senko at a primary school in London. I, um, I mean, I've been in Send for the last 21 years because, I had a personal, physical, medical incident whereby I lost my voice, I lost my motor ability. So after that, I realized how difficult SEND children struggle with communicating. Initially I'm a qualified MSc science teacher who used to teach biology at GCSE and A levels. But after that incident, I went back and qualified as a SEND specialist with autism as my specialism. But then in the years, I then did my neurodivergent coaching and therapy course and executive function course as well. At the moment, the main thing, I'm working very closely with primary school children, neurodivergent children, children with social emotional behavior difficulties, and supporting them and setting up nurture groups in schools, training staff, training parents.
So are you doing that as an external person or within one school? Within one school. Amazing. Let's go back to that, because I think it's really amazing insight that you've got actually, is losing your voice. What was it about that made you resonate so much with these non-speaking neurodivergent children? What kind of frustrations did you find? Did it help you to understand what you were seeing in them or behaviors you were seeing in them in any way?
Yeah, I had become very short-tempered, very edgy, because many a time I would want something done, and because of my physical disability or my speech was slurred, I struggled to communicate. And I'd be saying something, but I feel like I'm communicating it clear enough to the person in front of me. And they are like doing the complete opposite of what I'm asking them to do. And it's just like, oh my God, and you just feel at that time, obviously, as I was an adult, I was an educated person, and because I could not write it and tell them, I was speaking, I thought it was legible, but it wasn't legible for them. It was very frustrating.
Yeah.
And it would just make me very edgy and irritated and just lose my cool very easily.
It makes sense, doesn't it? Of course you would find that frustrating. So then now when you're seeing those same frustrations in the children that you work with, what goes through your mind when you're seeing that now in comparison to maybe before your
I recognize they're
incident?
trying to communicate something. And that is something what I train everybody. I mean, my baseline or my motto is something that with all the staff, with the teachers, teaching assistants, HLTAs, parents, I always say behavior is communication. They're trying to communicate something. you
I
know?
could kiss you, Faria. It's true though, isn't it? Behavior is communication. And yet, just like you, when you were so frustrated, you knew exactly what you wanted. You just weren't being understood. I mean,
Yeah,
there is nothing more frustrating than knowing what you want and not being able to access it or not being understood.
exactly.
And no wonder that we're seeing hitting, kicking, biting, hiding, running away, all of these throwing,
100%.
all of these things. Because yes, it might be sensory needs and yes, it might be other things, but ultimately it comes down to frustration of not being understood.
Yeah, because there's something in the environment which is triggering them, which is making it difficult for them. They don't want to be difficult. They don't want to bite. They don't want to hit. They do not want to kick. That's not what they want. I mean, that is just their response. That's their triggered response.
So
That's
true.
them going into fight and flight.
Yeah. It's so true. Just like we all do, like you said, we all get pushed to that point in some incidences, don't we? And in I guess it just comes down to thinking if we were in their shoes, would we act any differently? And the answer actually is no. And I think actually would probably be worse. I mean, I feel like the children in my class are incredibly patient with me,
Mm,
incredibly understanding and adaptive and resilient actually with what they have to manage every day in a world that really isn't built for them.
exactly. I mean, and children, neurodivergent children, children who are lacking in their executive functions, children with behavioral difficulties, it's usually, I mean, especially in a mainstream environment, because they're having to deal with so many difficulties in their environment. You have so many of them masking it in school, and then parents come back and tell us we are having complete meltdowns at home. And then parents are being told, oh, your parenting has to be looked into. It's your parenting, it's not good enough. Or, the support system has to change. That understanding has to be there. We need to find out what is causing this. Why is the child behaving like this? Why? Nurture groups, I feel, have been a game changer because during COVID, when the children came back after COVID, when the children came back to school, we saw, a real need for support for parents and children because, children were coming back with their impulse control completely not developed. We were having children's behaviors completely escalated, meltdowns, hitting, harming themselves, harming others, harming the adults around, harming peers. And it was just, how do we support these children? Children didn't want to come into school. Okay. So that's when I mean, I had read a lot about on the research on nurture groups before. Historically, I have worked in specialist needs school as well. And I just thought, how can we bring something like that into the mainstream, but not have them excluded?
Yeah, because that's the alternative, isn't it,
Yeah,
for these children? The
yeah,
alternative isn't send them to a specialist provision because
yeah.
there isn't enough spaces, or maybe they don't meet the criteria. So yeah, in an ideal world, of course they would go to a specialist school, but actually in reality, the alternative of mainstream education is exclusion, isn't it?
Yeah. And the mainstream school, I feel, is is good for our special needs children. It's good for our autistic children. It is good for our children with executive function difficulties. It's good for our behavior because they see their peers and there is modeling, there is mimicking. They do want to be there, they want to integrate.
It's more real world as well, isn't it?
And then they will be going out into the real world. You'll not have the specialist settings. You'll not have
Yeah. I
the
think it
one.
helps everybody. My specialist provision is attached to a mainstream school, and the definite benefits I see is that they all will grow into adults in the same
Mm,
community. So if they're not seeing each other through childhood, then when they become adults and they see the children in my class that will be adults in their community, they'll be a lot kinder if been brought up with them and alongside them and played with them in the playground and all of those kind of things. They're far more understanding, kinder, well-rounded mainstream children if they have that exposure. And same
exactly.
for the children in my class. They'll be far less scared of the outside world if they've had some safe, predictable experiences within that safe school environment.
Yeah, because you see, when you have the mainstream children with the with the children with special needs in their class, neurodivergent children in their classroom, you'll see them, even if this child plays in isolation, or, he will play alongside the other peers, and they'll allow them to hold their hand and take them, to go and play during playtime. They will acknowledge them, although there will not be any reciprocal play. But it's so beautiful to see that
It is.
their peers are so, they really love them, and they are there to help them all the time. And it's good to see that we are, educating such children who are going to grow up to be citizens, who are going to adapt, and who are going to help and understand, and, when you have other children saying, "Oh, miss, I think he's struggling with the noise," that
Yeah.
shows recognition. They are not just saying, "Oh, he's being naughty, or he's crying, or he's screaming." They are telling us what it is that is causing this. It's just amazing to see
It
that.
is. It's really beautiful. It really, really is. Another benefit is in my classroom, sometimes they they attempt to communicate or attempt to socialize, but it's because it's not reciprocated, it then falls on deaf ears and they might not try it again. So we do some of that in the class, and rather than relying on us adults, actually it's really lovely to have some inclusion time with the mainstream peers where it is reciprocated, where those offers of play are accepted and validated, and then they will try them again. So yeah, there's so many benefits for having these hubs in mainstream, but I suppose without the hub, these children won't be doing any of those things because they'll be so terrified and so anxious and so dysregulated. So what were you seeing before you started the hubs in your classroom?
So we were seeing a lot of meltdowns in the classroom. We were seeing a lot of school related absences, children not coming into school. We were seeing a lot of children being extremely, either they're highly, they're going to meltdowns, or they were completely reserved. They were completely just sitting in one corner, not, engaging in anything. We were having lots of dysregulated behaviors during transitions. We were having, you know, teachers were struggling.
Yeah, I was going to say as well, like it's not just the individuals, is it? It's the whole class.
The whole classroom, because when you have these severe meltdowns, and the whole class has to, everything just stops, because you have to look after this one child. Even if you have an extra adult, the other children, the teacher, everything was, and we were getting, so my head teacher called me. She said, "Faria, we need to think of something." So I went and read up about nurture groups and the success they've had in Northern Ireland. We've had such great success, whereby, you have almost 90% success in mainstream schools, where they've had nurture groups with neurodiverse children. You have children with social emotional behavior difficulties. And I put a bit of twist to it, because I wanted to support. After autism, we have seen this great influx of many children coming with the ASD diagnosis. So we've had many children, with neurodivergent, autistic children, children with ADHD. I mean, in my so many years of being in SEND, I'd never seen a 6-year-old being diagnosed with an ADHD diagnosis, but now we're getting lots of those as well coming through. And so, with parents also really struggling, that's when we decided to start off in 2023. We started a nurture group, with 6 of the most children were really struggling, neurodivergent children. There were 6 neurodivergent children.
And are they in the nurture group full time?
No,
No. Okay. So how does it work? What does a typical
that's what I want to explain. So
right? So what does the day look like?
the day looks like the child comes into, so because we are an early starting school, we start at 7:50. Okay, and then so we have a brighter start morning. So all the children get breakfast, whether you've had breakfast or there's great breakfast for offer in every classroom. There's breakfast on offer, and then there is some dancing, silly to calm. They have some, that is first 15 minutes. First 10 minutes is dancing, breakfast, and then you do your register. So by 8:15, the first students that will attend the nurture group would be the year 1 students, because obviously they've come from reception. This is in September. They've come from reception, open plan, play, choice. They've had all that. And now coming into year one, into a completely structured environment with their tables there, it was very, very difficult. So they would come in and I would be leading that. A specialist teacher would lead that. And they'd come in at 8:15 to me. So this would be in September. We would start off with a 45-minute session with them. And this session would include all the, so we would have attention bucket during that session. We would have, sensory play, sensory therapy, Lego therapy. We would have Play-Doh therapy, would have massage therapy. So it's 4 to 5 days a week, 45 minutes during September. We would lead this. And then after that, they're going back into their classroom and they would join their classroom and they would have their sensory breaks. But throughout this year, while I was doing these, the teachers, every class teacher came and observed the
Oh,
sessions.
lovely.
So in this way, they could then mirror and put in the strategies they saw me using with these children. So, transitions from carpet to the tabletop, transitions from one activity to another, sensory breaks, you know. So instead of being reactive, we started being proactive.
It doesn't hurt any of the other children either.
No,
Like, all children benefit from sensory breaks and
exactly.
transitions and visuals and all of those things. So that's just music to my ears to hear that all teachers were invested and interested in not only introducing those and supporting the nurture group and understanding what's going on there, but actually bringing in those really important strategies that can help all children into every class.
Yeah, and everybody got training on trauma and nurture. So everybody was trauma informed. Everybody recognized, the behavior iceberg. Everybody started looking at this child doesn't want to make your life difficult. They are struggling, and that's why they're doing this. And once they started, by the spring, second half of the spring term, the time is reduced because the behaviors and the skills they have learned are now transitioning into class. You see, once they go from the nurture room, once they've had their sensory appetite fed for the morning, the morning, waking up in the morning, being rushed into school. We don't know what the home environment has been. We don't know if they slept well at night. As we know, autistic children struggle with sleeping at night. All those things are, when the child comes into the nurture room, I am there. The TAs who are trained, trauma informed, nurture, giving nurture, recognizing behavior iceberg, recognizing communication is so many times, you'll have the child bouncing in and he'll just run off because the hub that we have made is very much a home away from home. So we
Lovely.
have a little carpet there, we have a little table, but we also have a little kitchen area. We have a living room area where we have soft furnishing, we have sofas, we have soft toys, you know. So you'll have them sometimes run in and just run in and go to the sofa and just lie down there. And the TAs know they're not going to run and force them. They're not going to. Eventually, they themselves come to the carpet and join in. And it becomes less and less because they enjoy what they're doing and they
Yeah.
know what the expectations are because there's consistency, there's structure, and there's routine. And they know what's going to happen. They feel safe. They know when I come into the nurture room, if I don't want to engage in the first activity, I can just go and lie down on the sofa.
Yeah. I feel like lots of people use the word nurture hub, and I feel like what you've just described is exactly what it should be. It should be a specialist,
Yeah.
trained teacher leading. It should be a organized environment that is for the children. It should be planned for and predictable with support staff in there. There should be a planned transition in and out of the mainstream. All of those things. Lots of the people that are doing nurture groups are not doing this, Faria. Lots of them are run in corridors and cupboards by teaching assistants that are not trained. and it really is used as a way of getting them out of the classroom, but with no plan on actually what to do with the children and getting them back. No forethought onto what that actually can be,
Yeah,
more of a babysitting service. And it's such a shame because it means that they think they're doing nurture groups when they hear that, but they're not being told what they actually are. So hearing you explain what you do is really enlightening. It makes so much sense to me that this is such a fantastic idea. And of course, this is supporting all children, the mainstream, them getting back into, the classroom. It's supporting teachers training. It's supporting their regulation.
yeah.
It just sounds fantastic.
Because, I mean, the main thing, why are these children being sent out of the classroom? Why? Because the connection is not there. The teachers are not recognizing. I know teachers have so many children and they have to, but once you have that connection, once you know, and you know, today this child has come in, yes, he has this learning to do, but today is not a good day for him. So maybe once he comes back from the nurture room, he could have this small activity, right? Or he could join in this group and then do something else. The environment around that child is fostered in such a way, or he gets along really well with this other child in class. Maybe if he's sitting next to this other child, and that child
Yeah.
is. So it's recognizing, and the nurture group has been really instrumental in building these connections with the teachers and with the students, and them knowing. By summer term, only about we would in September I'd start off with a 12 group student. By the summer term, I'd hardly have 3 or 4 left in there because they're happier to be in class and they're happier to they know they can ask for their sensory break. When they've had enough, they can say stop because they've learned that in the nurture group. They've learned I can say stop. Okay, enough. I can't do this, and the teachers, the TAs who are working with them recognize, is this a tantrum or is it just, are they trying to just avoid it? And they can really just be cheeky here. Or, no, he's having a difficult time. Okay. Should we challenge here or not? This is what we need to do. Recognize, connect, you know, and that is where the nurture groups have been excellent because once those children have learned their social skills, they've learned how to ask for help. They've learned how to say no when they've had enough. They've learned how to communicate happy, sad, pain. We use the zones of regulation. As soon as they come into the nurture room, the first thing is they go and sign in. When they first start, they're just doing what everybody else is doing. But through the sessions, they start saying, no, blue, you know, and those who cannot, who are pre-verbal or, they are able to show if they're in the blue, they'd point to their stomach. I'm hungry.
Mm.
It's up in the blue
It's
today,
just amazing.
okay, you're hungry. All right. First, you'll have something to eat then. You didn't have anything in class. Let's have the choices. What do you want to have? Choose what you want to eat. And obviously,
Yeah.
all of them, they're the ones who, not chocolate, it's sweet, but you can have a muffin.
But great asking.
But, and they will try. And then, so many times they'll try and and then we
But they're
also,
understood. So even if it's not a yes, they feel understood by you. You're giving them that connection rather than that control. You're
exactly.
understanding them. You're understanding that it's important to them that
Yeah.
they are hungry,
Yeah.
and that's just beautiful.
And the nurture then is transferred into the classroom because the teacher has attended. She has seen what a difference it makes. She
Yeah.
has seen the strategies that we use. And they do have tabletop activities. They have phonics sessions. We have curriculum-based activities as well in there. But we are adjusting the environment to meet their needs. We're not asking them to adjust. And then they will learn how to be resilient enough to be able to succeed in environments that are not suitable. But at least they'll build that resilience, they'll build that confidence, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. What happens? So they're your Key Stage 1 children. What happens with Key Stage 2 if they're needing
Oh,
a bit of
oh, yeah. So
support?
the key stage two as well. So I have year one, I have the early years, key stage one and two. And then key stage two, we have a second Senko who leads her group for key stage two. Same, we've had excellent, I mean, we were all in tears. One of our students who was, school avoidance was a major, an autistic boy who struggled to come into school and school avoidance. The nurture group, his attendance was excellent. He got a head teacher's award. He just, on their graduation for year six, and I was just like, so
Amazing, isn't
it's
it?
amazing when you see this progress, when you see them becoming so confident. We've had children going from our school, going into secondary schools and, their parents and them coming and saying to us that, the the boy was able to tell the staff that I'm not comfortable doing this. And, because he's learned that, he knows that he has a voice. And if he doesn't want to do something, you know, they're forcing, I'm not going to do this. I
Whereas
don't feel
before
like
he might have run away or
run
thrown
away.
something or
It used to be one of those children getting very frustrated. But now he's using his voice or he's using his body whereby he got to move away from that place.
and it's validated. He's not forced. He knows he can do that because he feels safe that he will be understood and not told off. It's not seen as a naughty thing in that respect.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I just think, the key principles of the nurture group should be that the child is able to predict his environment, know what's going to happen. He knows his emotional, he's able to communicate his emotional feeling, how he's feeling. We encourage every feeling is validated. Even if you're angry, yes, how do we communicate that? You know, how do we self-regulate? How do we co-regulate? How do we self-regulate? From co-regulating to self-regulating. We want to make these children independent enough. We want to make them successful in every area of their, for them to be happy children, to be happy individuals, to be able to communicate, to be able to recognize how they're feeling and to be able to communicate how they're feeling. They don't have to resort to, you know, hitting or shouting or crying or going into severe meltdowns, which are very difficult for them as well. They
Yeah, of
struggle.
course. Yeah, it's very tiring.
Yeah,
um,
exactly. So, I mean, the main aspect of these nurture groups initially was just to support the children after COVID, children who are having, meltdowns. But now, because we've seen such a great, even children who are coming in, like the safeguarding team would get in touch with me and say, this child, this ACE is involved. We would take that child into a nurture group, even if it is for a term. And you'd
mhm.
see great difference in their, emotional well-being, a great difference in their able, them able to connect, them able to know who they can connect with, them able to know who they can ask help for, them able to communicate, to be able to, their social emotional language, the vocabulary becomes brilliant, it's amazing to hear them use different words, I, like the other day, I think I had a year four child, she said, I think I'm just overwhelmed. And I was like, oh, that's a really good word. What do you mean? What do you mean by overwhelmed? And, I'm in the blue zone, but I think I'm overwhelmed. That's why I'm in the blue zone. And then she went on to explain, because in class as well, they use the zones of regulation. They
Okay.
check in twice a day, in the morning and in the afternoon. And if they're in the red zone, they're able to communicate to the teacher why they're in the red. Oh, this happened during playtime. Okay, let's see how can we help you. We are here to listen. So I mean, again, as I said, nurture groups should be there, to form those connections, to form that safety. you know
How if Senkos are listening to this or head teachers are listening to this and thinking either I want to set up a nurture group or we've got a nurture group, but actually it doesn't run quite like this. what's important for them to know when to ensure that their nurture group is done in this collaborative way?
Think for them to recognize this, it is, and to be able to set up a nurture group, is to have the senior leadership team on board. The
Mm,
head teacher is extremely wonderful, and she's so inclusive, and she's all for, supporting special education needs students, children, other children, vulnerable children. She's always looking for avenues. I mean, the offer and provision we have in our school is amazing. This was just the cherry on the cake, the nurture group. But it's training the staff on recognizing, connecting, and training the teachers. The teachers need to come in. I know
yeah,
teacher
it's
training
true.
they do, but in teacher training, the send portion is very limited. Teachers
Very true.
struggle when they have children coming into them, throwing tables, and it's difficult because they have 30 children in their classroom. It does become difficult. It's not that easy. And now with the school struggling, with funding, and, we don't have enough professionals coming in. We have to look for avenues. And I think having SLT on board, training staff, and, three principles of it being to nurture, to teach these children skills to be able to develop, their learning skills. So understand their learning is understood how developmentally for them to progress, you know, recognizing language is a vital means of communication, whether it is through speaking, through facts, through AAC devices. All those transitions are important for children. So for them to be able to transition, even in the classroom, nurture groups are the best place because they start in a small group. It's amazing when the head teacher walks in the second half of the autumn term, and you have these year one children who struggled even, the first few weeks were, oh, and you've just finished your attention bucket. And what's next? Tabletop activity. They're putting away their cushions, running to the table, it's the same children. And that is now then, transferred into the classroom because when the teacher says, okay, table time, transition, they're more
Right.
than happy to do it because that system has been taught to them in a smaller environment. And now they're able to practice that in a
Yeah.
larger, more noisy, safe, structured, emotionally responsive environment.
Yes, absolutely. You said before you started this that you did some research about nurture groups. Do you have off the top of your head what kind of reading or what you used to research this? Because I'm sure people would want to find out more through those.
Didn't I don't have it on top
That's
of
fine.
my
Do you want to email it to me and I'll
I'll
leave it in the
email it to
description
you. I'll
below?
email it to you
So if
because
you're listening to
just
this and
mine and yeah.
yeah, that's fine. If you're listening to this and you would like to learn more, then I will have all the links to what you've researched
Yes,
below and
I will
everything you
send you
find.
all the links for that.
That would be
I
amazing.
also have a debate that happened in the parliament a few years. It's quite an old one, but it's quite specific on how you're talking about nurture groups and how important they are. I think it's nice for people to go and look at that debate and all the questions that were asked around it.
I would
Because,
love you to
I
send
mean,
me links.
sometimes you have nurture groups whereby it's, the children go there to complete work that they were not able to do in the classroom, you know. So that defeats, the main reason for bringing them in this. They were not able to do that in the classroom because there's a certain reason behind that. So we need
Yes,
to,
otherwise it feels like a punishment, doesn't it?
yeah, we need to support that child to be able to build that skill or build that resilience to be able to do that task in the classroom.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what do? We teach them those skills. We work with them to be able to build that resilience, that impulse control. Sometimes it's neurodivergent. They have spiky profiles. Sometimes they will be able to do it, and sometimes they will not be able to do it. It's us as the adults to recognize, have that connection, and see, okay, today is not a good day. We don't do this. But excluding them, taking them out as a
Yeah.
it becomes
As a
more of a
punishment.
punishment, you know?
Yeah. And otherwise, I think that's what's happening. And then it's losing that connection. It's losing the trust that nurture group is building. It's making it a negative thing, a scary thing, and it's not ultimately, yeah, the purpose of fundamentally what a nurture group should be doing. Faria, what does the future look like? You sound like you've got always lots of ideas and always developing. In your mind, like, what's the next thing? What does the future in send in mainstream look like to you?
I want to be positive because unfortunately, it's very glim. And, it is becoming very difficult for the teachers. It is becoming because we do not have the professional support. Before you used to have occupational therapists coming in, you had speech and language therapists coming in, you had the educational psychologist coming in, you had the speech and communication, complex needs team coming in. They're all coming in to support you. And now you don't have that. Now it's only an assess and recommend basis, you
Yeah,
know.
so the children are getting more complex and more higher needs, and the
Yeah.
support is diminishing.
The support is diminishing. And I I I just feel we need to, as I said, the main aim of us putting this nurture room program in place was because we were struggling with this all, children being, we can't have that child in the classroom. Okay. And we can't just have them outside for the whole day, and then, alternative provisions, there's no spaces. There's no, you have the educational side, get an EHCP. I mean, we have educational psychologists coming in only to assess for an educational healthcare plan. Before, we used to have an educational psychologist coming in to give recommendations, to observe the child, to train the teachers, to train the staff, give us more insight. So I think at the moment it is very difficult, but we have to look for ways to support these children. And the nurture group it has been very successful for the last 2 years now, this third year going. And I feel setting up a nurture group in your school as a means to transfer the skills into the classroom, not as a means to hide the children in.
Yeah, and I think that's it. That is exactly it, isn't it? How are your school funding this? Is it extra funding, or are they self-funding it, or is it through EHCPs, or
So we have some children who have got EHCPs, so that's how we are funding it. And then, I mean, our school has been quite good financially for many years, but
Mhm.
now, of course, everything is going down. Everybody is struggling. So I don't know. In the future, we might be struggling as well. We are being very careful. But setting up a nurture group is not very expensive because if you already have a Senko in the school who is a specialist, and you can, you can also use, if you have your buy-in service or you have your speech and language therapist, or, just take those ideas, a small room with good lighting, some soft furnishings, have your carpet there, have a few tables there.
yeah, we're not talking a full sensory room. We're
No,
not
no, no, no,
talking
no, no. You don't
anything like
need
that.
a full
It's a
fence.
small
Yeah.
space.
And yeah, a small space, and you have an interactive whiteboard there where you can, like with your co-word curriculum, the one, you have where you have the videos, like, so we have our Play-Doh therapy, which again, it plays on the board and the children are with their Play-Doh. They're just following
Yeah,
that.
so you need a couple of tables, a couple of chairs, a whiteboard. It's basically a small classroom,
Yeah.
specialist teacher, and some support adults. But they probably come with them from the main class, or some
Yes,
support
that they
adults.
come with it, and
Yeah.
those adults are trained in trauma and in,
Yeah, I
nurse.
guess that's the thing. It's using that budget, whatever budget you do have, for
Yeah.
staff training
Training,
ultimately.
exactly. And again, we are at the moment, because it has been so successful, we have parents also coming in to join into these nurture groups to
Amazing.
see what's happening so that they can then transfer these strategies at home. And
Amazing.
we are also looking into now training different schools, working with different schools, sharing our practice. So that's the next chapter, what we're going to look.
Fantastic. So if you're a school in London, in town, then get in touch with
Yeah, they
Faria.
can get in touch with me and we'll be more than happy to share our practice with them.
I know, because this is a question I get all the time. I know people are going to be listening to this and thinking, I need to get in contact with her. I want to find out more. Where do people find you?
Okay, so as you already know, I have my Instagram, Agent Senko. I can be found on there, and I will leave my email with you, which they can contact me through email.
Amazing. They definitely will. Just warning you. Thank you so much, Faria. This is such an important conversation, and I am so pleased that there are schools out there that are doing this and doing it this way. And I'm so pleased that you have come on here to share your insight to, as this is the perfect time as well, the start of a new term to get this right. I think
Yeah.
it's really important. So thank you so much, Faria.
Thank you, Jordan, for having me over. And I just say if there's anything anybody needs, I'm more than happy to help.